Good afternoon. Today we will continue with the discussion that we were having yesterday. We are primarily interpreting number of theorists, number of category of theorists who were evaluating, moreover critically evaluating the Weberian idea on authority, on domination, on control, on rationality. See, if you take into account this particular area, as already I referred yesterday, that we have been getting a couple of questions directly or indirectly. Yesterday we discussed how Talcott Parson and Alvin Gardner highlighted the dilemma that is there in the Weber's theorization of authority, and subsequently we did also take into account some other theorists who have highlighted the unintended consequences or even dysfunctional characters, dysfunctional aspects of bureaucracy, like let's say Robert Morton and a number of students of Robert Morton, like Alvin Gardner, Peter Blau, Philip Sejnik. And see, in that we discussed that while Robert Morton highlighted that there has been certain type of consequences, those are unintended consequences, because Weber says moment you follow a rational bureaucratic organization, the goal is going to be achieved in the most efficient manner. So compliance towards rules, regulations, the processes, technical methods that is established within the organization are rational. Robert Morton found out it is not so, that the compliance towards rules and regulation in fact results into displacement of goal, and this is the unintended consequence. But the subsequent studies of his students, Alvin Gardner or Peter Blau or others, Philip Sejnik, they found out that within this Weberian type of administration, individuals are not that very helpless. They are not completely captured by the organizational authority. Rather, they retain their freedom, and within the organization, they in fact on number of situations, in number of contexts, like let's say Peter Blau will say, there are number of symbolic aspects in which, in number of symbolic ways, individual indulge or engage in the organization, and many times they violate the laws, rules, regulation. Thereby, they are not captured by the organizational authority. And if you take into account Philip Sejnik also similarly maintained that individuals have their own interest, and that is why it is very difficult to exercise control over them. And in actual practice, they operate on the basis of their own interest, and that is why we need efficient and competent managers to exercise effective control over the human being within the organization. And that is why he referred human being within the organization as recalcitrant tools of action. Today, let's extend this discussion. Today we'll be discussing a few important aspects correlating to these unintended consequences, even rationality and domination from critical theorist perspective, from Marxist perspective, and at the same time today also will take note of the postmodern analysis of the organization and the administration. To begin with, if you take into account Robert Jackal, Robert Jackal, Robert in his book Bureaucracy as a Moral Mage, he has written a Bureaucracy as a Moral Mage. In this, he has similarly found out that individuals within the organization are not exactly controlled in the same way as Weber has conceptualized. As per the Weber, under this modern organizational system, individuals are controlled by laws, rules and regulations, and compliance to that rules, regulations results into the achievement of the organizational goal. In fact, Robert Jackal in his studies have found out that individuals within the organization remain self-interested. That means they aim towards achieving their own goal, although they tend to justify the same in the name of the organization. So his study similarly has found out that individuals' behavior within the organization is mostly directed towards achieving the individual's own goal, and in that they tend to innovate and create their own actions, own initiatives. In fact, Robert Jackal has found out that within the organization, individuals tend to build more and more informal relations, and they work through something what he refers to as a circle of affiliation. So human being within the organization, or the organizational man, instead of typically controlled by organizational laws, rules and regulations, that means instead of being completely formal, completely legalistic, Robert Jackal has found out that individuals develop their own circle of affiliation. Circle of affiliation more so through informal mechanisms. So they built informal ways, unofficial strategies. They create relationship with fellow individuals within the organization, whether superior or subordinate or colleague, not necessarily as per the organizationally defined terms and conditions. And in that, they interact through what we otherwise can be referred to as informal interaction or informal exchanges. So that means what Robert is trying to say or found out, that individuals within the organization, unlike to what Weber has established, are not necessarily always governed by the legal norms or official terms and conditions. They develop in the due course of time their own style of functioning. They choose their actions, their behavior, and they interact with others within the organization through unofficial, informal means. And in the due course, they try to create circle of affiliation. That is what has been referred by clause of clause of A, as symbolic substitutes. Symbolic substitutes. Symbolic substitute simply refers to that not necessarily I being a functionary within the organization always operate exactly as per the objective character of the organization, the objective definitions of the organization, that is as per the laws, rules and regulations, as per the technical processes, procedures, mechanism that is established within the organization. Rather, I act with choice, I act with freedom. So there is something called an agency within me, within the organization. Agency means freedom within the organization. So I tend to actually develop my style of functioning, my way of interacting, and I try to influence others through my language, through my action, through my behavior. That's what Robert says. Try to develop a circle of affiliation, which clause of A refers to as symbolic substitutes, substituting the legal norms, technically established procedure, and developing my own style of functioning within the organization. So Robert found out within the organization, not necessarily, first of all, individuals are operating as per the established official terms and conditions. They do in fact choose, they do in fact develop their own style, own way of functioning. At the same time, say, he in fact found out that within the organization, individuals' behavior moreover remains individuals' behavior moreover remains within the domain of the self utility, something like what we can say utility maximization, or let me reframe this, that individuals' behavior within the organization, Robert says, committed towards the maximization of the self-interest. So within the organization, the individual does everything with regard to the job so as to give an impression to the boss that the individual is capable, but capable not in the objective sense. Now, let me emphasize on this. As Robert says, in his study, he found out that individual does everything within the job so as to give the impression to the boss that the individual is capable, but here the capability or the competence is not exactly as it is required for the organization to achieve the goal, rather as it is required by the boss. That means loyalty remains towards the boss, and everything that the individual does within the organization is to simply please the boss, or to create an appearance that the individual is promotable. Promotable means he is worthy trusting, worthy to be given responsibilities, and will do the job as it is expected by the boss. And the expectations of the boss from the subordinate with regard to the activities within the organization is not necessarily is always in congruence with the organizational goal. So this is an important aspect. Robert Jackal has highlighted bureaucracy as a moral maze. That means within the organization, individuals develop their own respective interest and act according to that. That's what is being referred as moral maze. So not necessarily individuals always act as per the requirement of the organization or as per the requirement of the organizational goal. Further, as another important aspect that is being emphasized by Robert is individual tries to create that not only informal groups, informal interaction, but moreover its action remains, action is defined in a way whereby the superior is pleased. Superior feels happy, superior feels confident, And not exactly that very confidence or the appreciation of the superior is not exactly as per the requirement of the organizational goal, rather as per the requirement of the personal satisfaction of the superior. So that is why individual defines its action within the organization so as to create an appearance to the boss that the individual is promotable. So that is why Robert Jackal says that individual within the organization carries out this action irrespective of legal norms or definitions in order to maximize his self-interest, something which Karl Mannheim refers to as self-rationalization. I think all of you can understand the term itself, self-rationalization. Doing everything in order to extend or further its own interest. So organizational laws, organizational rules, regulations, its technical procedures, methods, mechanisms are meant for organizational rationalization. Organizational rationalization means all those are meant to maximize the goal of the organization, but in reality within the organization, individual carries out activities in order to maximize its own goal. That is what is being referred here as self-rationalization. Now that means Robert Jackal has developed an important aspect, highlighted an important aspect of the Weberian theory of administration. He is simply highlighting, unlike to what Weber says, that individual within the organization will not have agency, loss of agency or lack of agency, that is no freedom, no choice. So once into the organization, you have to leave your emotion, you have to leave your own ideas, you have to leave your own interest, and you have to only do what the organization prescribes you to do. So the role the individual has to play is to be exactly as per the rules, regulations, or technical processes that is outlined within the organization. Like few other theorists, Robert Jackal also highlights that it is not so. Individual within the organization retains its agency, even though it is a hierarchical organization. Even that is an organization where the individual's role is predetermined, is preset. Still, individual enacts its role, creates its role, remains innovative, and in that particular context, is in fact not necessarily always does everything to further organizational goal. Rather, within the organization, most of its actions are directed towards maximization of the self goal. So this is one set of theorists that we considered. Those who are trying to highlight some of the very what we can say critical aspect of the Weber's theory. Like yesterday, Alvin Goldner, Talcott Parson, they highlighted how in Weber's theory there is a dilemma, there is a confusion with regard to the compliance towards the authority, obedience towards the authority. Talcott Parson highlighted the confusion that remains between the position and competence. Alvin Goldner highlighted the confusion between the position and rationality. Subsequently, if you take into account other theories that we discussed, Robert Morton highlighted that how whatever Weber is saying if you follow the laws, rules and regulation, then the goals of the organization is achieved. So the laws, rules and regulations, or the processes within the organization that is defined, are meant for achieving the organizational goal, or that actually results into organizational rationality. Robert Morton in his study found out that when you follow these laws, rules and regulation, many a time it actually becomes ritualistic. You become committed toward this laws, rules and regulation, and in most cases people, for them this becomes the goal and goal is lost. So not necessarily complying to laws, rules and regulation leads towards organizational rationality. It may not be so. Organizational goal itself might be frustrated. But Robert Morton in his critical analysis agreed to Weber's idea that within the organization, individual may not have autonomy or freedom, remains a slave to the laws, rules and regulation. But his students, Alvin Goldner or Peter Blow or Philip Sejnik, their finding was something different. They did find out, oh yes, within the bureaucracy, unintended consequences are there. But these unintended consequences are not because what Robert Morton says, individual remaining slave to the laws, rules and regulation. Rather, individuals within the organization, they have agency or freedom. So they resist. So they might have conflict with the authority. They might resist authority in direct or indirect means. So this resistance, this conflict, this dynamics within the organization between the superior and subordinate results into unintended consequences, as these theorists have highlighted in their own way. Similarly, what I discussed today, Robert Jackal and his idea of bureaucracy as a moral maze, he also extending that very argument, highlighting that individuals within the organization, unlike to what Weber says, not necessarily are slave to the laws, rules and regulations. They, in their own way, they are very creative, they are very innovative, they remain, they continue to have some freedom while being within the organization, and very meticulously they develop their strategy of interaction with others within the organization, so as to create something, an informal interaction, a circle of affiliation. They become a group, part of the group. They create friends. They create sympathizers. And with regard to the superior, they always act in a manner that superior remains happy, because from there itself they will get the benefit. So whatever they do within the organization, they remain focused towards the maximization of their own interest. So unlike what Weber is saying, that individual do not have freedom, the Robert Jackal says no, individual within the organization do exercise freedom, maximizes the self-interest, though on many occasions might justify that in the name of organizational interest, but mostly maximizes the self-interest, what Karl Mannheim refers to as self-rationalization as against organizational rationalization. So this is a group of theorists that we discussed, those who were discussing the Weber's idea of authority, rationality and all these things. But at the same time, let us also take into account another set of theorists. And that's a very interesting set of theorization who did also deal with this classical theory in general, Weber's theory of bureaucracy in particular, and they also tried to analyze some of the important aspects like rationality and domination. So let's take into account the critical social theory, critical theories and Marxist theorists. We'll discuss some of these theorists like Adorno, Marcos, and their criticism of the Weberian bureaucracy, or even the classical theories, that these theories, instead of increasing the skill of the workers, increasing skill of the organizational man, they are actually resulting into de-skilling. People are becoming de-skilled, they're not actually increasing the skill. There's something interesting outline they're taking up. Or they're, in fact, these theorists, they might highlight that they're making individuals slaves. They're controlling their not only public but also private life. So a number of these analyses they have actually put forward. Let's try to understand those analyses. Now, before I deal with this critical theory and its critical analysis of the Weber's theory of rationalization and domination, let me highlight one particular aspect. See, Weber believed that individual once joins this rational legal bureaucracy, once becomes a part of this rational legal bureaucracy, will lose its freedom. And while studying Weber, all of you must have studied that how Weber emphasizes that individuals within the bureaucracy, they experience alienation. What is this alienation? That once individuals are there within the bureaucracy, they are expected to follow laws, rules and regulations. So they have to enact a role that is officially expected of the incumbent to a particular position. So anyone who is occupying a position, every position is expected to play a role, enact a role, act according to preset guidelines. So thereby, Weber is highlighting that organizational man is only public, has to act impersonally and thereby maintain a separation between the public life and private life, or public space and private space. So that is, that individual who is appointed into a bureaucratic organization has to only act as per the definition of the position that the individual is occupying. So Weber's theory highlights that individual within the organization is not the whole of that individual, is only a part of that individual, that the official part. So that individual might be angry, that individual might be very loving, that individual might be very religious, or whatever that might be. So that individual has to leave aside, outside, the love, hatred and all sort of emotion that the individual carries as a private individual. So while being within the organization, that individual has to only retain that official role, that official demeanor, so everything has to be official. So anything other than that official has to be completely left out. And Weber says the type of organization it is going to happen. It's not that it is to be left out, it is also going to happen because it's an official system, it's a legal system, boss is there to take care of you, vigilance organizations are there. So each and every act of yours has to be as per the predefined details of the job. So that is why individual within the organization is going to be an impersonally detached individual carrying out the responsibilities as per the requirement of the organizational rules and manuals. So Weber believed that individual is going to be some sort of a slave, which he is highlighting through his idea of bureaucracy being an iron cage. See, same in a different way has also been identified by a theorist named Karl Marx. So Karl Marx says that in this capitalistic administrative system, what Weber will be referring to as this rational legal bureaucracy. So Karl Marx is referring in this capitalistic administrative system, individual will not be able to realize its own self. Individual is going to be also alienated from everything, from its own labor, its own whatever is produced from its labor. Marx is very critical that individual is going to be completely separated from its own self, because the individual within this capitalistic administration is going to be captured by the bourgeois. The managers are going to be the controller. So whatever individual is doing, it is not what individual chooses to do. So the choice of individual only becomes a tool of production within the organization, so thereby suffering from alienation. So Weber has discussed in a different way, Marx has discussed in a different way, but both of them are highlighting that individuals within the organization, in this bureaucratic organization, loses any choice, agency, thereby becomes something like a slave within the organization, acts exactly as per the defined system or defined idea within the organization. Now let us try to understand this particular idea, because see, some of the theories that we took up, there are few who disagreed. Maybe Alvin Goldner disagreed, or for that matter, let's say Robert Jackal disagreed. No, individuals have their own freedom. If you take into account critical theorists like Horkheimer, Marcus, Adorno, in fact Denhardt, and very important theorist in the contemporary context, Denhardt. See, the critical theorists, they also take a very dim view, a very grim view of the human freedom within the administration. They believe that the human being within the organization is controlled as a tool to achieve organizational purpose. See, they have taken a slightly different route to reach at this explanation. They say that as technology and science is used to master the nature, like let's say human being, when we advanced, we learned more things about the nature through our scientific power or through our technological prowess. So science and technology helped us to know nature and to some extent even develop our mastery over the nature. So with the help of the science and technology, we can redefine the topography of the nature. So if it is a, let's say, barren land, we can maybe make a water body. If it is a jungle, maybe there we can create a colony, human colony. So through science and technology, it's a very simple way, a very limited way I'm giving the example. So through technology, through science, human being tried to control the nature. By understanding the nature, they tried controlling nature. Critical theories, they believe that this traditional Weberian theory of administration is also aiming at doing the similar thing with regard to the human being and its behavior. What are they saying? They are saying, as technology, science and technology is employed to understand and master the nature, the physical nature, similarly, the same philosophy is employed by the traditional administrative theories, or for that matter, let's say Weber, in his theory of administration, to employ the same, what we can say, the scientific and a technological approach to to have mastery, to control over the human being. These theorists believe that in such type of organization, in this type of organization, the man within the organization is made a tool for production. So it's made merely a tool for production. So it's controlled. It's no more carries the freedom. So it remains a slave of the organizational dynamics. Within that, the man is subjugated, and man is subjugated to laws, rules, regulations, and the man is made to believe that the interest of the man lies in following these laws, rules and regulation, following these tools and techniques, because in compliance to these rules and regulation lies the achievement of the organizational goal, and there also lies the achievement of its own interest. Let me repeat this. The critical theorist, let's say, while referring to Taylor's philosophy, or let's say the Weber's philosophy, they are saying, see, in this type of theory, the man within the organization is made to follow the laws, rules and regulations, whether to monetary incentive or even to certain type of manipulable approach. What is that? The man within the organization is made to believe that it is in the interest of the organization that if you follow the laws, rules and regulation, if you follow this technical style of functioning or these processes that is established in advance, then the organizational goal will be achieved, and organizational goal being achieved, your own interest is also going to be addressed. Like, let's say, the Taylor would say that if you follow managers' let's say ideas, whatever manager has decided, then you will be producing more, and if you produce more, your wages will be also more. A similar type of outline what the critical theorists are highlighting, that if you take into account these classical theories, if you take into account Weberian theory of administration, this traditional organizational theory, they in fact make the individual pursue or comply to these laws, rules and regulation or the organizational norm. That is why the critical theorists say that the organizations, these bureaucratic organizations, they socialize or indoctrinate the organizational man. They socialize or indoctrinate the organizational man of its own suppression that lies in its own interest. Let me. So the critical theorists say that these bureaucratic organizations, they socialize or indoctrinate organizational man that in its own suppression lies its own interest. So the critical theorists are saying that if you take into account these bureaucratic organizations, these traditional organizational theories, they have developed a system of administration, a type of normative system whereby the individuals are socialized or indoctrinated into the belief, so that they made to believe that in their own suppression lies their own interest. In their own suppression means if they follow these laws, rules and regulations, if they dutifully do what the organization is requiring them to do, then that will result into the satisfaction of not only the organizational goal but their own goal. So that is what they are saying. The interest of the individual lies in its own suppression. This is the critical theorist. So the critical theorists, in fact, are emphasizing that individuals are completely captured by the organization under this bureaucratic organization, bureaucratic systems, which Alvin Goldner has referred to as metaphysical pathos. Alvin Goldner. In fact, if you remember, Alvin Goldner does not believe that individual can be completely controlled. Alvin Goldner in his study has found out that individual do retain agency, that means freedom. But whatever that might be, the idea that the critical theorists are presenting, that individual loses freedom. In such type of organization, individual is captured by the organization, something close to what Weber is referring to as iron cage. But Weber is talking from a very beneficial, from a very idealistic point of view, that individuals have to be complying to the official line of action, because that will make organization efficient, that will serve the purpose of the individual itself in earning more money, becoming, let's say, prosperous. But see, these theorists are criticizing that. While they agree, individual becomes a slave, loses its freedom. But they are taking it from a different point of view, that the individual is manipulated. Individual made to believe within this system is something that is socialized, because all of us, the critical theorist will say that by being an officer, by being a functionary within a private organization, a government organization, we become very dutiful to our job, because within that organization we are made to believe that in doing this, this is what is virtue, this is what is good. Not only in this, your goal will be achieved, organizational goal will be achieved, the society will be well off. So whatever that might be, the critical theorist in fact is highlighting that this type of bureaucratic organization, they leave no possibility of human agency. Human agency is human freedom. They are subjugated, and that is why, being referred here by the critical theorists, they would say that the organizational man or the individuals are socialized or indoctrinated into a belief that in their own subjugation lies their own interest. So socialize or indoctrinate, socialize or indoctrinate organizational man that in its own suppression lies its own interest. So this particular idea, this very thing has been referred by Alvin Goldner as metaphysical pathos. Metaphysical pathos means individuals do not have freedom. They are very much somewhat emotionally captured. They're something like fooled. They're made to believe something which is not actually right. They're something indoctrinated. They're something like they're with some a type of system that is a bigger system, a type of arrangement that is put in place where they are made to believe that everything is in their favor, this is in their own good, so go about doing this thing, while in reality they have been captured, they have been enslaved. So that very phenomena Goldner is referring to as metaphysical pathos, while Goldner, so here you should not get confused. Goldner is not advocating to this view. Goldner is simply, this term is explaining this condition. Because Goldner is a theorist, Alvin Goldner is a theorist that we studied. He believes individual within the organization do have a choice. In reality, they exercise that choice, and thereby they come out with number of different type of behavior that already we have discussed. This is the critical theorist. So the critical theorist, here as we are saying, they are highlighting that how in this bureaucratic organization individuals are subjugated, they're manipulated into their own subjugation. Now if you take into account, let's say, the Marxist theories, not Marx theory, Marxist theories. Here let us take into account theorists like Harry Breverman, see, Harry Breverman is providing a very providing a Marxist interpretation of the bureaucratic organization and in fact this rationality and domination within this organization. He is of the opinion that individuals in these type of organization, those are made to operate under extreme specialization, standardization, gradually become de-skilled. So Breverman, while referring to this bureaucratic organizations, because bureaucratic organizations are based on the principle of specialization, principle of routinization or the standardization, that the focus is that everything should be taken up on a specialization. So there is more and more specialization. Every small thing is specialized. Every job is very much defined. So who will do what exactly? Every step sought to be outlined. Every process needs to be established, leaving almost no choice to the individual to in fact exercise its creativity or freedom. So Harry Breverman is saying that if you take into account such type of organization, these type of organizations are based on more and more specialization, more and more standardization. So in such type of organization, every aspect of the human role within the organization is predefined. So that requires no application of mind. In fact, the human being is not required to apply its mind independently, rather merely follow what already it is laid out. That is what Breverman says, that this condition in fact results into de-skilling. De-skilling of the organizational man. And in fact he is saying, the same he is referring through the term proletarianization. He says this results into proletarianization within the organization. That means within the organization, even at the higher level, their job tend to be more and more defined. So when job is more and more defined, so here individual loses its autonomy and does not have the scope to apply its own mind, its own creativity, and that results into what is being referred to as proletarianization. So almost even the white work, white collar workers they also become blue collar workers because their job is also to a large extent standardized, leaving them very limited area, very little area for their own job, own application of mind. And as far as the middle and lower level of the organization is concerned, almost every activity is well defined, leaving no choice, no freedom for the individual to apply their mind. As a result of which, this leads towards proletarianization, or moreover what he is referring to as de-skilling. So people within the organization, they become more and more incapable, they become more and more de-skilled, or they lack their creativity, innovative, their capacity to create, their capacity to innovate, their capacity to creatively find solution simply are lost. But see here, if you take into account other Marxist theorists, like let's say Wolff or Havel, say they believe that in such type of organization, yes, there is de-skilling, but there is no universal de-skilling, because in some cases there is de-skilling and in some cases there is re-skilling. So within the organization, yes, there is de-skilling, because this type of organization, this bureaucratic organization, they are focusing more and more on defined task, repetitive task. So an individual who is engaged in that type of activity is not to apply its mind, because few activities that individual has to take up on routine basis. So that individual gradually becomes only equipped to deal with that. The actual ability to solve problem, to deal with activities, to become creative goes away. This is a case that is happening. They do agree this is happening, but at the same time they are saying we cannot say it universally in case of every individual within the organization. Because in some part of the organization there is de-skilling, in some part of the organization that is re-skilling, because there are a number of jobs, those are becoming redundant, and there are new jobs that is coming up, and people, especially at the middle level or the upper level of the organization, they are taking up new jobs. So when they are taking up new jobs, they are being introduced into new type of skills, new type of competence or skill. So these theorists believe that in some cases there is de-skilling, in some cases there is re-skilling. So if you take into account this Marxist, the Marxists in fact are highlighting that on one account they are highlighting that is de-skilling, there is another account they are saying that is re-skilling. But Harry Beverman in general says there is proletarianization, there is loss of skill, people are becoming increasingly de-skilled, and this type of organization is not actually an organization that is making people more skilled, or people who are working within this organization will become more skilled, rather they will become more and more de-skilled. But see here, the Marxists did highlight some unintended consequence of this type of approach. If you take into account Taylor, if you take into account Weber, they would say with this type of approach, productivity will be more, and organization will get more profit, and individuals will also get more wages, and they will become happy. But see, the Marxists in fact interpret that the consequences are not exactly going to be this. They believe that with the more and more proletarianization, that means more and more de-skilling, the difference among these workers within the organization or functionaries within the organization is going to go down. So within the organization, because everybody job is defined, so not much of skill actual skill is to be employed. So there is a progressive descaling. So across the hierarchy, in different hierarchy, people are going to resemble with each other because all of them are de-skilled, or most of them are de-skilled. So this will result into this Marxists are saying this will gradually result into a situation where the employers or the owners, they are going to be pitted against, they are going to be simply that group is going to come up, they are going to be pitted against the non-owners. So across, let's say, unskilled workers, semi-skilled workers, skilled workers, blue-collar workers, even white-collar workers, because at every stage, now the focus is under this bureaucratic organization to standardize, define, and to thereby leaving no scope for this individual occupant to exercise their faculty to become more and more skilled. Rather, in the due course, all of them become de-skilled, so they will gradually belong to a same category, a single category, as a result of which it will come up, there will be a scenario where it will be something like non-owners versus owners. So this will be something, an unintended consequence that they are highlighting with regard to these modern bureaucratic organizations. Similarly, another unintended consequence that they have highlighted, that because individuals under this type of administration, under Taylorian system of administration or under Weberian system of administration, they are not expected to apply their mind, because everything is defined in advance. So what they are asked to do, they have to comply. So that will result into, as they say, it might result into monotony. Even not only monotony, but this might result into lack of motivation. But since they don't have to apply their mind, it's simply they have to do the same thing time and again, it will result into monotony, it will result into lack of motivation. And one other aspect they are highlighting, that this might actually lead towards the negative thoughts, because it's an ideal mind, not ideal mind, lazy, simply because within the organization they are not using their mind for doing the job, because they are already defined. So mechanically they have to carry out the activities. So if you take into account theorists like, let's say, Althusser, a number of these theorists are there. Those are some of the Marxist theorists. They say, since the people do not have to apply their mind in the job, so that mind is going to be available for alternative thoughts, because mind is there. So it's available for alternative thoughts. So many different types of thought in terms of, let's say, something that is may not be conducive for the organization. So they might start scheming, collaborating with other people, forming union or forming groups, or trying to manipulate. So number of these things might can be a possibility. So since people are asked to do the job as it is, so there is no application of mind, it might result into monotony, it might result into lack of motivation, or at the same time it might lead to a situation where the people might actually carry certain, what we can say, unpleasant thoughts, or even dangerous thoughts that might be contrary to the organizational interest, and they might engage in this multiple thoughts or ideas that is not anticipated or may not be expected by the organization, or that may not be in line with the organizational goal. So these are some of the aspects that I wanted to discuss, and we discussed these ideas. If you take into account your question paper, directly or indirectly, a couple of questions are coming from this segment. this is the critical aspect relating to your classical theory and more particularly represented through the Weberian bureaucracy. So I hope this is helpful, and also you're able to use many of these things in this year's main exam. Now let me take into account another thing for discussion, that is so the postmodern analysis of organization and administration. See, in order to understand the postmodern analysis of the organizations and the administration, first of all, we need to take note of, or moreover, a very generalized view, a brief and generalized view of modern organizations or modern administration. Because the moment you talk about postmodern, this is not merely beyond. It is also something negation. So whatever modern stands for, the postmodern rejects it. These ideas are something negation. So not only postmodern carries certain ideas, those are beyond, those are somewhat later and beyond to the ideas that define modernism or modernity, but it also is a negation of those ideas that define modernism or modernity. Now here let me give you a very brief and a generalized overview relating to modern analysis of the organization and administration. Following that, we can take up postmodern analysis, because without considering the modern the modern organizations or the analysis of the modern organizations, will not be able to understand the postmodern analysis. See, when we refer to modern organizational theories, modern administrative theories, so it includes all that possibly in our syllabus we have studied. It includes even the classical Weberian theory of administration to that of even the humanistic theories, including the systems theory. All these are captured under the modern organizational theories. Because modern organization depicts certain character, or when you talk about modern organizations, modern administration, it carries certain character. Now, what is this character? What exactly are the key characters of modern organization? First of all, modern organization is considered, or as per the modernism, or as per the modern organizational theory, the organizations or administration is considered to be having a definite identity, so thereby a definite boundary. So one important aspect first we have to take into account: the modernist view of organization and administration. First, we have to take note of this. So in this, we are saying that when we consider organization or administration, when we try to understand organization or administration from the modernist point of view, the first thing it highlights is that organizations or administration are definable. So thereby they have definite identity and boundary. So if you take into account the modern view, as for the modernist theorist, for them organization is something, a concrete identity, a concrete character. It has a definite appearance, identifiable character. So it is something concrete, it's something identifiable, it has a boundary. That means simply, like, let's say, the idea that is carried is we can develop concrete features of the organization, we can define its goals, its objectives, and all these are real, all these are definite, all these are constant. So one aspect of the modernist theory of organization is that organizations are real, they can be defined. Okay, this is this organization having this goal, having this character. So this is one aspect. So if I have to, let's say, extend this further, explain this slightly more. As for the modernist theories of organization, when we say that the organization is definable, organization has a definite character, a definite identity, boundary, that means the organization and the environment, they're separate. They're separate. The environment might be acting something like what we otherwise have studied earlier. All of you must have studied in your systems approach and other theories that organization acting something like a black box. When organization will act as a black box? Only when organization is definite, it has a concrete identity, and there is an environment outside, and the environment acts as an input and the organization acts as a processing unit. So with that, it comes out with an output. So this idea is referring to that the organization is definite, concrete, established, it can be easily characterized. This is the one of the important character of the modernist view. The second is rationality, or simply instead of taking this as a second, let's consider something else. The second is differentiation. differentiation and specialization. That is, these organizations are systematically structured, because these organizational theories emphasize that organizations, to be efficient, they need to be very nicely structured. And they are structured in the form of, let's say, hierarchy or specialization, and thereby different departments, different units, different. So, very systematically arranged right from the top to the bottom, where every position, every unit, every let's say department, their role, responsibility, functions are well defined. So this is another important character of the modern organizations, or the modern theory as they perceive the organization. So modern theory perceive organization carries a definite character. It is something constant. It is something irrespective of what I think of the organization, what I believe of the organization has its own identity. It doesn't differ from one individual to other. It doesn't depend on the perception. It doesn't depend on the image that individual creates of the organization. Rather, organization in itself is a reality. That is the first point. The second is that organization, a good organization, in order to succeed, needs to be very systematic. It needs to be structured very systematically. Moreover, that is captured through differentiation and specialization. And third is rationality. That is, it carries that belief. Modern organizational theories, it in fact emphasizes that organizations have laws, rules, regulations. Organizations develop technical processes, procedures, mechanisms, and these, if followed, will lead towards maximization of the organizational goal. So the modernist organizational theories, they're broadly characterized under these three aspects: that the organizations are real, they have definite identity, they have thereby they can be defined, they can be characterized. Second, organizations are structured, they have definite, let's say, units, they have definite responsibilities, rules, regulations. And the third is that these rules, regulations, or mechanisms are meant for the achievement of the organizational goal. So if they follow, that is followed, that will result into achievement of the organizational goal. So the modernist organizational theories, they have developed an organizational view that organizations are independent, organizations are identifiable, and they have their own reality, they are well structured. Good organizations are well structured, and it has its own laws, rules and regulations, own processes and procedure. When they are followed, it helps to achieve the goal. This is the modernist view of organization and administration. Now, as against this, see, postmodern theories, they reject this view. They do not agree with this view. In fact, the postmodern theories, they are not only one, postmodern theory is not one theory. It is in fact assemblies of large number of theories. But for our requirement, let's take help of a theorist called Martin Parker. Martin Parker, while referring to these organizations and administration, he says that postmodern challenges the modern ideas. And this challenge to the modern idea of organization and administration can be captured under two strands. Broadly under two strands, as I am saying, postmodern theory as such is very diverse. It is very varied. But for our understanding and requirement at this particular context, let us take help of Martin Parker. Martin Parker simply says that if you take into account the postmodern ideas with regard to the organizations, it challenges the modern ideas on the organization and administration. And this challenge, the postmodern challenge to the modernism, is based on these two strands. Now, these two strands being postmodern epistemology and second is postmodern periodization. Postmodern epistemology and postmodern periodization. Okay. Yes. One of our students trying to clarify. Ankit. Yes, Ankit. What you are referring with regard to the modern organizations, modern view of the organization is very clear. As you are saying, we can say that it is a structure with specific details. Yes, the modern theories, they try to conceive organization with this what you have referred. Yes, it's correct. Now, anyway, so the postmodern theories, they do not agree with the modern theorist. In fact, they challenge the modernist view, and this challenge can be captured under these two major strands, to be simplified by Martin Parker. One is postmodern epistemology, and the second is postmodern periodization. Now, what is this postmodern epistemology? Now, see, when we refer to epistemology is basically the science of knowledge. That means in every study, in every discipline, there is they try to acquire information. They try to acquire knowledge relating to the respective field. Like, let's say, physics wants to acquire knowledge relating to the physical world, or sociology is aiming towards acquiring knowledge with regard to the social relationship in the society in different aspects. So in public administration, we are trying to acquire more and more knowledge relating to the organizations, organizational functioning, human behavior in an organizational setup. So we are trying to acquire knowledge. So the science of acquiring knowledge. So the science of acquiring knowledge is what is basically referred to as epistemology science. That means how to acquire knowledge. What knowledge is reliable? What methods should be used? So which knowledge or ideas are trustworthy or are considered to be true or false. So see, that very aspect is what is referred to as epistemology. So epistemology simply refers to the knowledge aspect of a particular discipline. So postmodern theories are challenging the modern theorist on account of epistemology. Epistemology here basically means the manner in which they understand the organization, the manner in which they understand the administration has been challenged. How they understand the organization? For them, the organization is a concrete reality. For them, an organization is good provided it has a definite structure. For them, organization works well if predefined laws, rules and regulations are there, predefined processes are there, and people, when occupy that position, they follow those and get success. Or for them, they believe that individuals have defined ideas or activities. So the modern organization, for them, the way they actually understand organization, the way they understand administration is challenged by the postmodern theorist. That is what is postmodern epistemology. So they are challenging the very knowledge of the organization and the administration, what they understand, what they believe about the organization, about the administration, is sought to be challenged by the postmodern theorist. That is what is postmodern epistemology. The second aspect, in fact, the most important aspect with regard to the postmodern analysis of the organization and administration is this postmodern periodization. For us, whatever we are going to take up, or moreover, for us, as far as our studies are concerned, we'll be more interested in this postmodern periodization. What is this postmodern periodization? See here, the postmodern theorist, assuming that, let's say, the modernist theory and their view of the administration is true. So that means they're taking help of the assumption of the modern theorists and trying to apply and test to the contemporary organizations, and thereby trying to highlight that, see, the contemporary organizations, the contemporary administration, the human behavior within this organization or administration is not exactly what you have been emphasizing. Let me repeat this. Postmodern periodization, period. These theorists, these are a group of theorists, or this is a particular approach whereby they're trying to nullify modern theories of organization and administration. They're rejecting, they're questioning the modern theories of organization and administration. They're rejecting their view, they're rejecting their understanding, they're rejecting their prescription. But how they are rejecting? That they're rejecting that by testing, by applying and testing their assumption, their ideas to contemporary organizations, to contemporary situations or contemporary requirements or problems. That is what is postmodern periodization, and this is going to be more important for our study, for our requirement. So here we are saying that if you take into account the postmodern challenge to the modern theories on organization and administration, it can be broadly divided into these two strands. So we can find out, one is postmodern epistemology, that is moreover trying to highlight that the manner in which the organization is perceived, understood is wrong. The manner in which the administration is understood is wrong. The manner in which the functioning, the realities within the organization and administration is understood is wrong. The manner in which the information is gathered or something is considered to be, So here I am referring, we are discussing that Martin Parker has summarized the postmodern challenge to the modern view on organization and administration. He has summarized that there are broadly two strands of postmodern challenge. One being postmodern epistemology and other being postmodern periodization. The postmodern epistemology, this is basically highlighting that the manner in which organization is understood, administration is understood, the realities of the administration as it is considered, developed and understood under the modern organizational theory is wrong. It has been challenged. So postmodern epistemology is basically referring to the knowledge with regard to organization and administration, knowledge about the organization, knowledge with regard to how the knowledge is gathered, what knowledge is gathered, which knowledge is considered to be authentic and which knowledge is considered to be inauthentic. All these are part of what is referred to as epistemology. So in a particular discipline, we try to gather knowledge. And while gathering knowledge, we try to gather knowledge that is reliable. We consider it as reliable. So we employ a strategy. And that strategy, we consider that this strategy is a good strategy that can give us a more reliable knowledge. So certain knowledge we consider reliable, certain strategies we consider to be reliable strategy to gather knowledge. So that is what is the epistemological part of that particular discipline. So in public administration, here as far as the organization and administration is concerned, let's say the classical theorist, the modernist theorist, they have taken something called slightly elaborating, although it will not be that much required here, but slightly elaborating so that you become more clearer on this aspect. So here we're referring that like let's say if you take into account modern organizational theorists, they moreover rely on a positivistic approach with regard to their epistemological requirement. What is this positivistic? That's an empirical approach. That is that you have to observe, you have to experience. So something that you can see, something that you can actually observe, something that you can feel. Only those information are reliable information. Rest are not reliable information. That's a positivistic approach. But see, nowadays we are saying that many things we cannot actually see, many things we cannot actually feel. So direct experience not necessarily is only basis for gathering information. Things becomes much beyond that. And since here the organization that we are observing is a human organization, and the human being is a very thinking being. So that is why understanding the organization only from the perspective of an external observation is something unreliable. So going beyond, so coming back to our discussion, simply the post-modern challenge, as Martin Parker would say, to the modernist version of the organization can be broadly divided into these two types, two strands: postmodern epistemology and postmodern periodization. As I have referred, postmodern epistemology is questioning the manner in which the modern organizational theories, they have gathered knowledge, the type of knowledge they consider to be reliable. So that aspect is challenged. And the second part is the postmodern periodization. The postmodern periodization, basically in this, the postmodern theorist, they're challenging, they're negating modern organizations by highlighting, in contemporary sphere, the organizations those are present, organizations those are operating, the activities that is being carried out, the problems that are emerging. For this, the organizational structure, organizational idea, administrative system that you are proposing, you have proposed, you have considered is not applicable. It has become irrelevant. So no more it is a viable idea to be carried out. So that is what is postmodern periodization. As I told, as far as our requirement is concerned, with regard to the discussion, and for that matter, our studies will be moreover relying on this postmodern periodization. Now, in this, let us try to understand what is the postmodern condition and identity of organizations and administration. Postmodern conditions and identity. See, if you take into account the organizations and the administrations from the postmodern perspective, it can be captured from two important perspectives. Two important perspectives. Two important perspectives. One is time, space, compression. Time, space, compression, and saturated self. Time, space, compression, and saturated self. Now, what is this time, space, compression, and the saturated self? This is we are referring that how in the postmodern perspective, the organizations or administrations, they are experiencing, or they moreover their conditions can be explained through the time space compression and the saturated self. See, today, if you take into account organizations, they operate in a real time basis. Operate in the real time basis means they moreover focus on immediate problem, immediate issues, and they try to employ the techniques, mechanism, or all those that is in fact at their disposal to resolve it, to maximize their effort. They are unlikely to be ready for looking at a delayed response, or unlikely to in fact wait for the result of their action. So whatever they are going to take up, the organizations moreover today, they know that they have to be faster, they have to be quicker, and they have to address the problem immediately. And not only they have to address the problem immediately, but their solution should be also not on a very long time consuming solution. Rather, that solution should be something immediate. So this is because if you take into account problems, the nature of the problems that has emerged nowadays, they are very dynamic, they are very, we can simply say, they're a reality in the fast changing world. So the problem, if it is not addressed now, immediately, it will lead towards more problem, and the same problem is not going to remain the same with the passage of time. The same problem, if not addressed, it is going to change into a new problem. So if you want to maximize your benefit, if you want to remain competitive, whether as a public organization or a private organization, you need to take note of the problem immediately and address the problem in a way that is in fact consumes very less time, or the solution should also be immediate. That is what is time compression. Space compression. The space compression is because of, let's say, the technology of locomotion or the communication. If in digital technology, for number of these things, internet and all these things, now space has lost its meaning. Even if, let's say, the organizations are there, organizations are separated from each other by thousands of kilometers let's say huge physical distance, no more it is a barrier. They can engage in, let's say, various types of productive activities through technology, and they can interact on a real-time basis. They can actually provide their services, they can provide their products, they can procure products and services, they can engage in exchange, and thereby the space is no more a barrier. So unlike to the situation previously, as it is being referred, that if you take into account organizations nowadays, they are operating in the backdrop of this time and space compression. So where the time is so important, time is so critical, and space has lost its significance because the distance is no more a barrier, and organizations can basically operate in multiple relationships. They can associate, they can collaborate, they can compete, they can exchange, they can mutually benefit. They can engage in multiple ways where the space is no more a restraint or a constraint or a barrier. That is what is time and space compression. So the postmodern organizations are characterized, their condition, in which condition they are operating, what identities they carry. Here one is time-space compression. So the condition is they have to be very prompt. They have to take note of the situation immediately. They cannot wait. They have to solve the problem. They have to address the problem immediately. Otherwise, there are consequences. Otherwise, they will not be able to handle the problem. So the issues needs to be addressed immediately. The time is the changes are very fast. Time thereby becomes very important. So for the organizations, they operate in a condition where for them time is not a luxury. Time is something very precious, very, very precious, and they have to operate on a real-time basis, identifying problems and solving the problems. So they have to develop more and more ways to address the problem, solve the problem. Like, let's say, if you take into account many service organizations or product-related organizations, previously, if you take into account there is a problem, there is an issue, the system could be, okay, you actually complained, you wrote a letter, or X, Y. So a number of things are there. A simple example I'm giving. But now, under this condition, you need to develop isocratic solutions. Isocratic means where people can immediately find solutions. The organization can develop certain system where people, many of their routine solutions they can take up immediately. So organization has to find ways and means to address to the problem at a faster rate immediately. That's what is the time compression and the space. Now another important condition and reality is organizations can interact with each other across boundaries, across the borders, where the space or the distance becomes completely meaningless. It loses its meaning. That is the space compression. The second aspect The second condition, the second important condition in which these postmodern organizations are operating is that they are saturated self. Now, what is this saturated self? See, now the organizations, they cannot consider themselves to be operating in isolation, in complete isolation. The organization itself, its activities, its products, its functions, it is linked to lot of other organizations, lot of other activities, lot of other dynamics in the society, economy, politics, everything. So the organizations are exposed more and more to variety of the things. So organization which is in telecommunication industry, it has to be very much it has very much exposed. It has the exposure to organizations dealing with artificial intelligence, organization even dealing with even something like, let's say, health or education, or even related to environment, as simple as telecommunication. So even if it is an organization operating in the field of telecommunication, it cannot actually remain completely isolated, completely restricted to that very stream. Okay, we have this domain that is specialized, and we need not know about let's say the education system in this society, or for that matter the topography or the living condition of the society, or the technology in terms of, let's say, artificial intelligence. So it has huge exposure, huge interaction. So the organization itself has to be exposed. It is exposed, and it has to be exposed. It has to accommodate. It has to carry multiple ideas, multiple caliber that cannot be restricted to its specific isolated domain. That is what is being referred to as saturated self. So on one account, it is being referred that organizations they operate in time and space compression, and at the same time they operate in an environment where there is huge exposure, multidimensional exposure. The organizations are interacting with other organizations, other activities, other systems at multiple level, in multiple ways. So that's what is saturated self. Now, in this backdrop, let us try to understand, or let us try to take note of the characteristic of postmodern organizations and administration. Characteristics. So as far as the characteristic is concerned, here I will make you understand, I will explain, but try to write it down. Few things I will be referring. Just jot it down, and I will be elaborating it. The first one, the philosophy and practice of just-in-time resource utilization. Just simply write it down, I will elaborate it. The philosophy and practice of just-in-time resource utilization. Now, this is something that I referred the organizations has to address the problem immediately. The changes are fast. Problems are going to be very challenging, and that needs to be dealt immediately. If not dealt immediately, the problem itself is going to change, and it might be even more problematic. So that's what is being referred, that the problems needs to be dealt immediately, the opportunities needs to be grabbed immediately. That's what problem here. Problem is not merely the problem itself, it can also be some opportunity. So opportunity needs to be caught, need to be taken advantage immediately, or problem needs to be solved immediately. That is what is the philosophy and practice of just-in-time resource utilization. Second is different working arrangements based on flexibility. Different working arrangements based on flexibility. See, as against the traditional organizational theory, it is office, home, that used to be separate. Private sphere, public sphere used to be separate. But if you take into account the contemporary postmodern organizations, now as far as the work environment is concerned, it is more flexible, it is more fluidic. So here the difference between the home or the office or let's say public space liquidates, vanishes. Work from home or for that matter, let's say number of different situation. Now the work environment is no more defined in the traditional sense. It is being redefined, and the difference between the work, the home, and even the leisure. We cannot say, let's say now I'm traveling, but even people who are while traveling with their family still working, still carrying out their activity because of the technology or other system, they still remain engaged, they still carry out their organizational activities. So the difference between the work, home, leisure, all this in fact are gradually intermixing, vanishing. The next is virtual organizations. So if you take into account the organizations today, unlike to the previous organization, is no more having a definite shape. That okay, this is the number of employees, this is the building in which this organization is there, the entire and this is the activities being carried out. Now the organizations has become timeless, or boundaryless. They have space, boundary, the jurisdiction. It has become simply very liquid, very formless. So there are people who will be working for an organization, but still they are not the member of that organization. The single individual might be working for multiple organizations in multiple ways. So that very defined or stable organizational structure is now being replaced with the boundaryless, flexible or timeless structures, which otherwise you can refer to as virtual organization. The next, we can say that this is an important thing, that the postmodern organizations or administrations are characterized with de-differentiation. De-differentiation. Now, what is this de-differentiation? De-differentiation basically refers to, maybe we'll be able to understand that in a comparison. Under the traditional modern organization, there used to be specialization. So individual used to specialize in a particular area of activity. So thereby we can say this individual specializes in this, so thereby gaining a definite identity. But today we need individuals to be multi-skilled. So this is the era of multi-skilling, multi-specialization. So this thereby refers to no concrete separation of individual activities or even unit and their activities. So same individuals are carrying out multiple activities, or different individuals carrying out multiple activities, multiple units, single unit also carrying out multiple activities. So now it is more about multi-scaling, multi-specialization, collaboration, networking. So that is what is being referred to as de-differentiation. The next is the same thing previously that we referred as far as the work environment being different. So here we can also add to some of the new concept like office on wheel or hot desking. Some of the new concept, office on wheel. So while you are traveling, while you are on a let's say car, still you might be working. While you're on a train, you still might be working. Or hot desking, basically the same space being used by two different functionaries from two different organizations. So the organization, the work environment is no more having that static, rigid, definitive identity. Now it is something very fluidic, very flexible. And the other character is the next is this type of administration is characterized with managing uncertainties. Managing uncertainties. See, previously the approach was that there are problems, so these problems needs to be solved. But now it is believed that problems are never going to be solved. Problems are not problem solved. Problems are never going to end. So it is not about solution, rather about managing. So the problems are going to come up. The immediate problem is there, subsequent problem will be there, then another problem will be there. At a given point of time, there is going to be more and more problem. So problems are realities of the organizational life. So that means the postmodern organizational theory identifies that today's organizations or administrations are going to work through something called turbulence and uncertainty. So they are going to work through turbulence and uncertainty. So when they are going to work through turbulence and uncertainty, the idea is not to completely, permanently address a problem. Rather, the idea is to manage a problem well and remain prepared to handle the emergent problems that is going to come up. That is what is practice of managing uncertainty. And the next is the saturated self and saturated organizations. Saturated self and the saturated organizations. Saturated self, see, individuals. The individuals are going to be exposed to multiple aspects. So they will be exposed to multiple different types of individuals, different type of organizations because of the technology, because of the technology in communication, technology in, let's say, a number of ways. So they are going to be exposed to multiple interaction, multiple experiences. So that is what is saturated self as against the traditional self, where they are only a skilled individual operating in a specific area, having a limited interest. So now people have multiple interests, multiple identities, multiple ideas, huge exposure. So that is what is saturated self. And organization are also going to be same. They are going to interact with other organization, interact with other individuals at multiple level in multiple ways, and thereby the organizations are saturated organizations. So simply these are the moreover the characteristic of postmodern organization and postmodern administration. With a simple note to conclude on the characteristics, you can simply say that postmodern organizations or administration, they are defined through impermanence or being transient. Impermanence or transient, that their goals are not permanent. Today this might be goal, tomorrow might be another goal. So they do not consider a particular goal to be a final goal. It keeps on getting redefined. That problems keeps on changing. That techniques goes on changing. Their approach goes on changing. So one thing that is characteristic of the postmodern organization and administration is impermanence or being transient. So this is the postmodern analysis of the organization and the administration. So we dealt today a few of the critical social theories and their interpretation of the traditional organization, Marxist theory and its interpretation of the traditional organization, especially related to rationality and domination. And subsequently, we dealt with the postmodern analysis of the organization and administration. Weber's iron cage of rationality. Weber's iron cage of rationality means Weber says that Weber's theory of administration is based on the idea that individual who enters the organization as a functionary is chosen on the basis of the skill or the merit, but by being within the organization has to operate as per the predefined rules, regulation and strategies. And there lies the interest of the individual and the organization as well, because while complying to those predefined role, the individual will be working towards maximizing the goal of the organization. So whatever the man is going to do within the organization while following the predefined laws, rules and regulation or the processes, it is going to help to achieve the organizational goal. That's what is rationality. So my behavior is rational to the extent it is going to achieve the organizational goal. At the same time, that will also address to my goal of more monetary benefit. But it is an iron cage. Weber's idea is an iron cage because here I don't have freedom. As per Weber's theory, I cannot act as I am. I cannot do things as I choose to. I have to operate as the position and the predefined norms of the position define it. That's why it's an iron cage. That's what is iron cage of rationality. So this is what for today. Thank you.